Let's talk about the two newest palettes from Simply Posh Cosmetics. We have the Down to Earth palette and then the newest palette, which is Black Cherry, and they're both already available. So let's take a look at the inside of each of the palettes. So first up, the Down to Earth palette. This one launched about 1 or 2 months ago. I believe this was the summer palette, but I also think this would actually be a great fall color story, especially with some of the grungier tones, the browns, the oranges, the greens, the olive greens, the teal, and the grungy greens. And both of the palettes do retail for $55, and I do have an affiliate code with the brand that you can use, which will be up on the screen. And thank you so much if you do use my code. And I did receive both the palettes in PR. I really like the variety of the different shimmers in here because I feel like they really go well with each column. And I will be showing you detailed swatches of all the shimmer shadows so you can get an idea for the opacity, the texture, the finish, and color. Is it a duochrome? Is it a multi-chrome? And then the Black Cherry palette, which I feel like this is such a beautiful color story. Really great for every day. You have some lighter tones, mid-tones, and then deeper tones on the bottom. I've always loved how they laid out their palettes with having all the shimmers in the center. I would say this is more of a monochromatic palette, even though it does have some slightly different tones alongside with the shimmers. So let's get into the detailed swatches of the shimmers and then one look with each of the palettes, and I'll give you some of my thoughts at the end of the video. First, 2 shades from the Down to Earth palette, so Earthy and Growth. You can see that the particle size is a little bit larger, but they do not feel like they're going to hard pan. They definitely don't feel thick or anything like that. They do feel more of like a standard shimmer formula. This one has a really beautiful yellow, almost slightly greenish, like a greenish yellow base with a pink reflect, but I see a little bit of purple in there as well. And then this top shade has a similar olivey tone base with a slightly more silvery reflect to it, but it definitely leans green. And they are super sparkly. They smooth out really nicely. Next 2 shades are Down to Earth and Sun Baked. I feel like these two feel a little, just a tiny bit more harder pressed. And Down to Earth can be either built up or sheared out. So this is what it looks like with just 1 layer. And then I'm gonna make it more opaque with another layer, or if you used a tacky primer to really help it stick down. It's a beautiful aqua with a shift to violet. Sun Baked has a yellowy orange base, but it flashes blue, but not like super bright blue. It's a little bit more of a subtle. And the last 2 shades are Oasis and Soil, very similar in texture to Earthy and Growth, so don't feel as harder pressed. So they feel, again, regular type of shimmer feel. No squishiness. Look at this one. Oh my gosh, it's so pretty. You know what this one reminds me of? It reminds me of Skink from Glaminatrix Cosmetics. Oasis is a brighter yellow gold, but can be a little bit sheer. I almost see just a little bit of like a taupiness on an angle. And then Soil has a brown base with a silvery reflect. So stunning. And I mean, look at the sparkle. These are so beautiful. Moving on to the Black Cherry palette. This is Cherry on Top and this is Sweet. Both of these do feel harder pressed. Overall, the shades in this palette do feel more harder pressed and less, like, slightly larger particle size than the ones in the Down to Earth palette, but not squishy. And this one is so pretty. And this is what they look like, kind of just 1 layer, and then of course you can layer them up. Like, I can feel just like I'm pushing down the particle basically inside of the pan. And I can feel it like compressing down. Sweet is a pink, slightly leaning purple, just ever so slightly. And it has a gentle shift to a lighter yellow. Cherry on Top has a magenta base with a blue reflect going into aqua and then into purple. It's juicy and luscious, and these do also feel much harder pressed and also a little bit thicker. So here's this one. I feel like this one's just a little bit similar to the very first shade, while this one definitely is pretty different. So this one's like a charcoal plum. It shifts to a grungy kind of antique gold on a really harsh angle. And Juicy is a bright pink base with a blue reflect. And I do see violet in there as well in the shift. For reference, here is Cherry on Top and here is Juicy. So there's just definitely a difference in between the base. The base is slightly different. I almost feel like this one leans a little bit more like orange, and then this one's more of like a truer pink. And the Flash Straight On Juicy has a much more obvious blue, but they are just a little bit similar. And the last two shades are Very Cherry and Bite. Again, same with the other shades in this palette, very much harder pressed. But they do smooth out, and they are very smooth, really small particle size. Love that one. So this is one layer, definitely could be a little bit more sheer. I'm gonna add another layer to Very Cherry. Really intensifies the base there. And then Bite is just gonna get more brighter green. So Very Cherry has a magenta base with a greenish reflect, and it does shift, basically just kind of becomes one with the base. Bite has a little bit of a grayish base to it with a grassy green reflect straight on, and it shifts to purple. First look is going to be with the Down to Earth palette, and I'm picking up Canyon first, and I'm putting that onto the outer corner. And I'm gonna put it kind of right into the crease. And using the same brush, I'm picking up Calming, and I'm gonna put that on the edge of that. And then a little bit more Canyon. And then just blending it up a little bit. Then taking a smaller brush, picking up Grounded, and I'm gonna pop that on the outer corner. And I'm just gonna bring that underneath my lower lash line as well. I feel like it's not giving me the depth that I was hoping for. It's kind of not layering really well over the mattes. Maybe it was too many mattes and now it doesn't want to stick down. And then I'm taking Sage. I'm gonna put that on the rest of my crease, kind of more like above it. And I'm blending it up. And then for the shimmers, I'm definitely gonna use a brush. These are harder pressed, so I know these are going to work really well with a brush and not necessarily with a finger. Picked up Growth on one of the brushes from me and Clionadh's collab, and I misted it with the Cosmetics Mist Potion, and that's gonna go right in the center of my lid. I'm going to be blending it out into the outer corner just a little bit so that there is no harsh line. And I'm going to bring it onto the inner part of my lid, but kind of on an angle, so I'm leaving some space for another shade. And then I'm going to be using the Rephr 02 Mini, and I'm going to be picking up Sun Baked, and I'm kind of picking it up on the edge of it. And then I'm going to mist it with Cosmetics, and then that's gonna go right up in here because the reflect of it is going to match the color I put on the inner crease, while the reflect of Growth is more pinky, so it's gonna go more with the oranges, like layer better. And that is super pretty. I'm actually gonna bring it just a little bit on the inner corner here as well. And then I'm just going to take a clean blending brush and run it along here just to help really blend that out even better. And here's the first finished look. Going in for the second look, I'm going to be using the Black Cherry palette. And I already primed with the Ulta Beauty eyeshadow primer. And I'm going to start out with Cherry Bomb on the outer corner. And I'm really focusing first, putting this down. Fresh pick. And I just took that a little too far out because my hand kind of just slipped. And I'm just blending that out. And that is blending so nicely. And then I'm taking it underneath my lower lash line. And I'm going to take Dessert, and I'm going to pop that kind of right in here. I feel like it looks a little bit more green in the pan, but once I put it on, but I'm not going to take it all the way down here. And I'm going in with just a little bit of setting powder, that is my skin tone, and I'm just going to blend that out in here. And then up in there. I really couldn't decide which shimmers I wanted to use because I feel like they all deserve their moment. So I think I'm going to go in with Very Cherry, which these are, again, really harder pressed. This one has like a magenta base with a green reflect to it. It looks very, very, very pink. And I did mist it with the Cosmetics Mist Potion. And I'm just going to be putting that on an angle, and I'm just going to be putting it basically in the center of my lid and then closer to my lash line once I get to the inner lid. And then of course making sure that the outer corner is not harsh. And then I'm going to use the other side of the brush because it definitely looks like it's stained. And I think I'm going to go in with Cherry on Top, which I feel like I've seen this shade already in a palette from Simply Posh, but maybe I'm just misremembering. And I'm going to pop that right in here. It's a pretty sheer shade. And it adds a little bit of coolness because it has a blue reflect to it. So it goes with that cooler tone matte in there. So pretty. Going in with a large, fluffy, clean blending brush. I'm just going to go over the edges. And here's the second finished look. So this is very much a first impression kind of video. I have only done one look with each of the palettes. Even though I am pretty familiar with Simply Posh and their shimmers and their mattes, I have pretty much almost all of their previous palettes, and I do have videos with most of them. I really like this color story, but I find that this palette lacks a bit of depth. I just feel like these two shades are not deep enough for my preferences, and I feel like these are mostly midtones, and then we have some more pastel kinds of shades, which I do feel like these are actually quite kick-uppy, and I almost feel like I have to be careful just based on that one look, obviously. So I haven't tried all the different pastel kind of leaning shades in here, but they do feel a little bit more powdery. I felt like I put too much of this shade down mixed with this shade, and so then this shade didn't really want to stick down because there was already so much powder on there. I only tried 3 mattes out of 12, so I definitely feel like I need to play around with it a little bit. This might be a palette where I go in with a deeper matte and then blend out with a lighter matte, which isn't always my preferred way to work with mattes and to create looks, but I don't have an issue doing that. I do just sometimes do it automatically anyway. So moving on to the shimmers, if you have any other Simply Posh palettes, you're going to be very familiar with their shimmers, and they are definitely more on the harder press side, and some shades can hard pan a little bit, especially if you're going in with your finger. I would highly recommend using these shimmers with a brush, which they pick up and they put down with a brush so great. Definitely would recommend a tacky primer though, one if you want most opacity and you want the most longevity, but of course that is also dependent on what kind of lids you have. So the hard pan doesn't really bother me because one, they are not squishy, and I much prefer that. I would rather have hard panning than having really squishy shimmers, and these are just so sparkly, so ethereal, so beautiful. Some of them are a little bit less opaque than others, which I always love that in a palette. I feel like it really creates a lot of versatility, so I'm really looking forward to using some of the other shimmers, especially Soil. It looks so beautiful. It looks like a beautiful, spicy, like everyday kind of neutral shade. So I definitely plan on doing some more looks with it, obviously off camera in the next coming week as I go into the office and really just testing out the mattes. Now the Black Cherry palette, I really love the tones in here. Again, it's a little bit more monochromatic, so I do feel like most of your looks are going to end up looking pretty similar. I feel like I wish there was just a little bit more variety, like something more along the lines of this, especially because we have one green shimmer and then we have a shimmer that flashes green, even though it has a magenta base. I would have loved to have seen like a green that's just a little bit more overtly green in here. I think it would have just spiced it up a little bit more, because this shade, even though it has a little bit of an olive tone, it really read as gray once I actually put it on my lids. So I wish there was just a little bit more variety, not only with the mattes but also with the shimmers, because I kind of feel like these three shimmers just give me very similar vibes even though they're different. I think it would have been great if one of them had been more of a peachy tone to go with some of the peachy mattes in here. As for performance of the mattes, I had no issues. I did go in with the deeper shade first and then blending out with the lighter shade, and that blended so easily. I got a beautiful blend, so I'm definitely excited to use this palette some more. Again, great everyday go-to kind of palette, especially because you can spice it up with the shimmers, and these are again the same Simply Posh formula, a little bit harder press. Some of them might hard pan on you if you're going in with your finger a lot, but they're so easy to use with a flat shader brush with a little bit of tooth to it. They pick up really great. Again, recommend a tacky primer, especially if you don't want any fallout during application and then throughout the day as well, kind of both ways. I like that some of them are a little bit more opaque than others, but for the most part, I do find that Simply Posh does tend to have mostly sheer shimmers, and again, just creates a lot of versatility, which I do enjoy very much, and they're just so twinkly, so beautiful, and I love that I can use a brush with them. Really great for anyone who doesn't like using their fingers to apply apply shimmer shadows. So I'm also going to keep this one on my desk so I can try it out in the next coming weeks. So let me know in the comments below if you picked either of these palettes up. I would love to hear your thoughts, what you think of them, which was your favorite, which look did you like, and if you enjoy these kinds of videos with close-up swatches of some shimmery, shiny, shifty, beautiful eyeshadows, as well as tutorials, then I will have some of my other videos up on the screen for you. And thank you so much for watching. I hope to see you next time.